The Bolts versus the Avs, the Stanley Cup final. Two juggernauts, the new kid on the block and the old guys who have been around the bend. They have walked to school uphill both ways twice. Are they going to do it a third time, or is it going to be the new generation, the young kids of the Colorado Avalanche, the up-and-coming team that has been chomping at the bit, knocking at the door, is now going to be their time? We are going to break down the rosters. We are going to break down the comparables on ice. We are going to break down everything in this preview, and then finally at the end, we are going to tell you, do we have the Bolts? Do we have the Avs? But more importantly than my prediction is using these raw facts and pure data so you can make your prediction. You should have everything you need at the end of this video to be able to make the best prediction going into the playoffs, to be able to confirm or check your bias at the door, to be able to see what you need to see. So what are you going to do with this data? You're probably going to cherry pick your favorite stats, comment down below and tell me how one little piece of data out there is going to change it all, because we're smarter than the machines. It is a lot of fun. These have been our most banger videos. I can't wait to go through it. I know you can't either. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. You always know, too, that our prediction videos are brought to you by BetUS. So why don't you head over to betus.com right now. Use code HGS. The link is down below. And go ahead and get started with a 125% deposit bonus so you can bet on the Avs or you can bet on the Bolts. You guys know what I ended up betting on going into this one, but we're going to have to save that till the end of the video. If you've been on this channel for some time, though, you know I talked about it in preview video 1, preview video 2, and preview video 3. So if you're new here, hold tight. We'll get to it. Now, why don't we go ahead and start the content? You know what we're going to do. We're going to compare two key areas, the rosters, and we're going to compare on-ice performance. On-ice performance matters more than anything. It's not just the roster. It's what you do with it, right, baby? All right, let's go ahead and pull up the chart. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the offense, the defense, then we're going to total it up. We got to talk about the goals. We got to talk about expected goals. What's the difference? Expected goals are very simple. It's what you should be scoring. At the end of the day, what you actually score versus what you should be scoring is a very important distinction, because how you're playing and what should happen in the game is very different than what actually happens in the game. And now we have a large sample size in the playoffs for both these teams, so it's a key category. We're going to do that on the offense and defensive side of the puck. You know we're going to talk about Corsi. Reminder, Corsi is just shots put towards the net. They can be blocked, they can go wide, they can hit a post. The more shots you put towards the net, the better. The more shots coming towards your net, the worse. We go ahead, we compare both of those. Finally, we're going to talk about goalies, save percentage, and GSSA, game score above average. Then we're going to go ahead and talk about the penalty kill, and we're going to talk about the power play. Then we total it up at the end. You got it? Let's go. All right, it's time to talk about goals, because goals are what matter. The Colorado Avalanche have 46 to the Bolts 28. That is crazy. Banana sandwich. Now, there's two reasons for this. One, the narrative is the Bolts have played better goaltenders, and there's no question about it when you have played against guys like Igor Shesterkin, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Jack Campbell. That is definitely a better trio of goaltenders, and I would argue a better defensive core than what Colorado faced. They played against Nashville, who did not have their elite goaltender. He was out, so they end up beating a backup. They end up playing against Jordan Binnington. He ends up getting injured. You get Ville Husso. Not a very strong goalie. Binnington, elite. What that series would have been, irrelevant. And then they end up playing against Mike Smith. We all know Mike Smith very well. Top of the roller coaster, bottom of the roller coaster. So which Mike Smith did they end up playing against? Either you agree that Colorado is such a scoring juggernaut that it will not matter what goalie they play against and they will exploit anyone in the league, or you do not think that the Colorado Avalanche have tested themselves against the league's elite, and the league's elite happen to reside in the East. You let me know down below. Expected goals for. This is how the team's playing and what they should be scoring, and this is going to help you frame some of that narrative we were just talking about. The Bolts should have had 38 goals, and the Avalanche should have had 34. What does this tell me? It tells me that by the way the teams are playing, this is what this stat says, by the way the teams are playing, data in, data out, the Tampa Bay Lightning should have scored 38 goals, but they played against hot goalies and they played against hot defense. It tells me that the Avalanche have overperformed and scored way too many goals compared to what they were. So that is where you end up getting the narrative that they are not playing the best defensively sound teams or the best goaltenders. So very interesting. Reality versus expectations. Which one are you buying into? Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at Corsi. These are shots generated towards the net, not shots on goal. Remember, they can be blocked, they can go wide, they can hit a post. Anything that goes towards the net counts for Corsi. Well, the Avs have put on 815 shots towards the net. That's absolutely crazy. That's why they're such a juggernaut. That's no different throughout the year, so that's expected. The Bolts have put 762. That means when it comes to generating chances towards the net, or pucks on net as they say, it's the Avs. And please, do not kid yourself. Corsi matters a ton. We just saw it with the New York Rangers. If you're not generating enough chances at the net, you're not generating enough chances at elite goaltenders, you're not going to beat them. So the Rangers were unable to generate enough chances at Vasilevskiy. No matter how good Vasilevskiy plays, he had to make a limited amount of stops. The Colorado Avalanche, they are the opposite. They are going to pepper you with shots. So this will be Vasi's toughest test to date. Last spot in the offensive category is the power play, baby. The Avs have the most bananas power play I have ever seen. 31.11%. That is God tier mode, baby. When you take a look at the Bolts, 22.58 is simply respectable, but it is not in the same category as the Avs. But again, we come back to quality of defense and quality of goaltenders. Is the Bolts power play low because they played the best of the best? Is the Avs power play high because they haven't played the talent that the Bolts have had? Only you can let me know down below. Where do I feel? I feel that narrative is correct. I feel the Bolts have an amazing power play. So do the Avs. Their roster, which we'll get to at the end, is both incredible. When you put out the top 5 of either team, it is going to be deadly. So I do feel these numbers are a bit skewed. The offensive summary is simple. Edge goes to the Avs. They have more goals. They have better Corsi, and they have a better power play. The only difference here is the expected goals category, and it's a big one. The way the Bolts are playing, do not let their low goal totals fool you. They are playing good enough to play with the best and bring home their third cup, but the edge has to go to the Avs. Follow the data. Moving on to defense and goals against. So the goals against favors the Bolts, only 24 goals against. That is because of their team defense, their ability to block shots in their own end. That is well documented. These guys take the pain. Any veteran on this team commits to shot blocks. That's what the Bolts do. That helps Vasilevskiy. That helps keeps goals coming out of their net, and they're going to need to do that against an Avalanche team that loves to shoot. The Avs have let in 29 goals. That's a little bit concerning considering they only have 2 losses. That's a little bit concerning considering the quality of opponents they've played against. These are not great opponents, and that leads me to believe that either the team defense or the goaltending has a few question marks on the Colorado Avalanche, juggernaut or not, and they are. The Colorado Avalanche have holes. There are ways that they can be exploited. There's ways they can be beat. The Tampa Bay Lightning on defense, one of the best, if not the best in the NHL. Now let's go ahead and take a look at expected goals, right? We got to be fair. Well, the Avs end up taking this one. Hey, right? Follow the data. The Avs are actually playing well enough that their expected goals is right in line with their actual goals. These guys are doing what is expected of them, and that's good. You want to be playing at the average because then when you make your prediction at the end of this, you can know the data is good. It's not skewed. When you look at the Bolts were overperforming. They should have 32 goals against. We all know, and I don't think there is anyone in Tampa Bay who is cheering for them or any of the experts out there. And I love when you guys put experts in quotes down there. Like, what? Are we supposed to run by a bunch of people or mob mentality? This ain't the Salem witch trials here, folks. Experts are there for a reason. They get paid for what they do for a reason in any field you want to be. But throw the expert quote down there. I am no expert. I'm just some dude on YouTube. But back to expected goals. They were expected to have 32 goals against. And what does that end up telling us? That ends up telling us Andrei Vasilevskiy has stolen a few games. You've heard me say it before about goalies. Goalies can't win you a Stanley Cup, but goalies can steal you enough games that those stolen wins end up adding up towards a Stanley Cup victory. So Vasilevskiy, I would argue, has already stolen 4 or 5 games. They've won 12, but those 4 or 5 games definitely help out the Bolts. And I think Vasilevskiy is likely primed to steal 2 more. Speaking of Vasilevskiy stealing, let's go ahead and pull up the goalie category. Save percentage. We're using Darcy Kuemper here. We are not using Franco. Kuemper is ready to play. When we take a look at the save percentage, it is an .897. Oh, not that great. He had a great regular season though, so we all know what Kuemper could be. He just hasn't been it yet. He got a little poke to the eye there. That wasn't funny. And I said immediately when that happened in this video, if you've been here, Avs fans, since the beginning, you saw it. I said, you touch a goalie's eye and it's going to screw with him for the rest of the playoffs. So people went, it's a scratch. It's a this, it's a that. You heard everybody saying it on TV, fans saying it down below. I think I was the only guy saying, you touched his eye. You cannot mess with an eye. As soon as a goalie has blurred vision, call it. It is going to be in trouble. And Kuemper ended up pulling himself for Francois, but Kuemper is ready to go. He also has a GSAA, game score above average, of -365. Go over to naturalstattrick.com. You can check all of these stats. That is bad. 0 is replaceable. Negative is terrible. Kuemper has not had a good playoff run. Vasilevskiy, on the other hand, is the best until he's not, and he just beat the guy that was contending for the best. That was Igor Shesterkin, and Shesterkin was brilliant, and he still couldn't outduel Andrei Vasilevskiy. A .928 save percentage with an .805 game score above average. This guy is banana sandwich. He is the very best. He may be the best player in the playoffs right now. I know what Cale Makar is doing. I know how good Nate MacKinnon and Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov are. But if you ask me who the best player in the playoffs is right now, it's Vasilevskiy until it isn't. Defensive Corsi, shots generated towards the net. This is where I get very concerned about Kuemper and the goaltending for the Avs. They have only had 597 chances directed towards their net in these playoffs. Oh boy, that is not what you want to see. Sure, they've played 2 less games than the Bolts, but let's think about how many chances are going to happen in a game. 45-ish. So when we are taking a look at this, it is a little bit concerning because there are enough goals going in against the Colorado Avalanche, even though their team defense is playing excellent. So remember above, I said, if you believe the Colorado team defense or goalie is a weakness, now we're taking a look here and we're seeing the narrative of the data is starting to check our bias at the door. And what it is telling us is that the Avalanche play excellent team defense. The Avalanche play excellent team offense. The Avalanche have a goaltending problem. That is what this is telling us. We move over to the Bolts and Andrei Vasilevskiy. Well, 762 chances against the Bolts. Vasilevskiy's been brilliant, but the Corsi checkmark has to go to the Avs because as a team defense, as a unit, the Avs are the best in the playoffs and better than the Bolts at keeping pucks away. Final category in the defensive show is penalty kill. You guys know how much I favor penalty kill. Penalty kill is hyper important. Power play is very important, but if you put a gun to my head and say you want a great kill or you want a great power play, I want a great kill. Great kills are as good as scoring goals. The Bolts have 82.46. They were exploited by the Rangers. This was an unbelievable, it was 86-87 going in against the Rangers. They lowered it to 82. So a deadly power play can exploit the Bolts. So this is a little bit skewed. We've got to be fair here. The kill for the Avs, 75%. That's not good. But again, we've talked about it. Their team defense and their data, it's shown it. It's pretty good, but it's a goaltending challenge here. So when you have the elite players on the Tampa Bay Lightning playing against the Kuemper show on the Avs, I'm going to take the Lightning to be able to score, and I don't see any reason the Avs penalty kill is going to get any better against the Bolts. However, the Bolts had an 86-87% power play against Florida and against that team they played before that nobody can remember their name of. Oh yeah, the Leafs. Just kidding, guys. They had an 86-87 penalty kill against them. Well, you know what? When they ended up playing the Rangers, who have a very elite power play, they got torched. So they are going to play against the most elite power play in the NHL. And I think they could end up getting exploited here too. So yes, it's better, but context matters. Finally, taking a look at the defensive summary, it goes to the Bolts, doesn't it? They're better for goals. They're better for save percentage and goalies. They're better on the kill. But the Avs have very good team defense, and the Avs are playing exactly as expected when it comes to goals and expected goals. That's my opinion anyway. So the edge, Bolts on defense. The edge, the Avs on offense. So if you believe defense wins championships, we total it up on the bottom, and the total says offense wins championships. The Corsi for the Avs is better. The expected goals for the Avs is better. And the actual goals for the Avs is better. They just perform better. They are outscoring any problems they may have in the D zone or with goaltenders. They are an absolute juggernaut and a force. And the totals just total up how you're doing on defense relative to how you're doing on offense. It comes together to make one key stat. This data is telling us it's the Avs, but why don't we go ahead and take a look at the rosters? We go ahead, we pull up the rosters here, and oh boy, is this a bunch of data. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to pause the video. You can go ahead and have a read of all this data. I'm going to talk you through the key points to this, but there are so many armchair GMs, and I love all of you. That's why we have a channel here. I definitely don't hate on those that love to follow lines, love to follow players, love to follow data. That is why we have great channels like this. I'm right there with you. So if you want to go ahead and break these numbers down yourself, you can. This is your time to pause. Welcome back from your pause or your no pause. Let's take a look at the key areas of this. What does gold mean? Gold means they are one of the best in the NHL at their position right now, and they're performing incredibly well. What does red mean? You stink, you suck, you garbage, get out of here. When you take a look at who's white, they're performing exactly as you'd want a player at that level to perform. It's not good, it's not great. It is exactly how you want an NHL player to perform. So when we take a look at line one, obviously the edge goes to the Avs. Landeskog, MacKinnon, and Nichushkin have been amazing. Nichushkin's been a revelation since coming over to the Colorado Avalanche. Stunk in Dallas, unbelievable with Landeskog and McKinnon. Stamkos and Kucherov have been two of the best, biggest staples in the playoffs. And if you ask me who the best forward is right now in the playoffs, I may lean to Nikita Kucherov. Landeskog and McKinnon have been amazing. McKinnon specifically is the best forward in this entire group on average, but Kucherov and playoffs, there's something about that. I have watched these teams in full detail. If you ask me, I would nod over to Kuch right now, and you know my Canadian bias, so you know that's got to be true. Take a look at line two. It's comparable with the exception of Mikko Rantanen. Now that Nazem Kadri is out, he's got a broken thumb, he had surgery, it's done, it's over. You got to take a look at this being a more equal lineup. You also got to realize that apparently Braden Point is coming back. I've seen videos of him limping, I've seen videos of him shooting and skating. I have no idea. They're saying it's likely. So if he ends up coming back, that'll be a game changer. But even right now, Rantanen is the game breaker on line two. So the edge for this ends up going over to the Avs as well. They win in the top six. But Hagel, Cirelli, and Killorn, they are no joke. And what doesn't get captured on GSAA, that's what these numbers are, game score above average. What doesn't get captured is things like veteran presence. You can expect guys like Cirelli to hold sticks and get away with it. You can expect Hagel to have a few cheap shots and get guys off their game and then go ahead and score goals. And you can expect the same from Killorn. All that guy does is block shots and play amazing in the D zone. So yes, Rantanen, Lehkonen, they are amazing. And Lehkonen, all that guy does is score overtime winners to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Am I right? When you take a look at Burakovsky joining him there, Burakovsky should be a fine add, but it's a little bit of a mix-up line here for the Avs. So not having that center to drive the line in Kadri could end up causing this line some problems. If this line doesn't gel the way it needs to gel, or Rantanen starts getting shredded on the draw, this could be trouble. So it's interesting. We have a skill line versus a line that has a lot of skill in the bolts and a line that plays very sound defensive strategies as well as veteran presence. Taking a look at line three, the edge has to go to the bolts on this one. Look, JT Compher has been amazing. You have heard me praise him. I think he is awesome. But when I look at Colton, Paul, and Perry, give me that all day, every day. Aube-Kubel and Newhook are fine players, but I want to take those ones. And I'm going to pause here right now because we're 3 lines in and there's like 10 comments down below talking about this guy isn't with that and this. Look, lines change all the time. You go to dailyfaceoff.com, you pick the starting line from the next line, you move on with life. This is always subject to change, not only at puck drop, but mid-game. It's called changing on the fly, people. Chill. Then when we take a look at the fourth line, you want to keep that fourth line off the ice as much as you can if you're the Colorado Avalanche. Look, Darren Helm, I understand he's from Manitoba. I love my Manitoba boys. He was a big hero leading into this series. But when you take a look at the fourth line for the Bolts, it is the only usable fourth line in this finals when you got Maroon and Bellemare. Riley Nash isn't what you want, but if you want to go ahead and stick Nash in there, you can. If Braden Point comes back, you move Corey Perry back to this third line, you move Hagel back. Oh boy, you watch out. This forward balance totally changes with Corey Perry re-entering the roster. But right now, offensively, it's very clear it's the Avs who have the better offensive roster. Taking a look at the defense, you may go ahead and look at this and go, and it's correct in my opinion. The Bolts have a more balanced 6 defense. Irrelevant when you are playing Makar and Toews. They are going to play 45 minutes. 45 minutes? Ugh, that would be a lot of ice. 45% of the game at least. These guys are just going to eat up ice time. You've heard me say it. Nom, 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 nom. Eat that ice time. These guys, they are the stallions on the back end. They are going to carry. Cale Makar is not only an offensive genius, but he is able to shut down the best. So Kucherov, Stamkos, they are going to get lined up against Makar. Makar has already shown he can stop the best in the world in Draisaitl and McDavid. Kuch and Stamkos are excellent, but they are not McDavid. So if Makar can go ahead and beat them, I'm sure Makar can beat these guys too. And Makar can score while shutting you down as well too. This guy is the game changer for the Avs, no doubt about it. If Makar puts Stamkos and Kucherov to sleep, baby, he's going to end up scoring, and the Avs are going to take this series. Devon Toews is no joke himself. He is an elite partner to Makar. And you know what? It's the finals. There's no holding back. You can go ahead and jack their ice time up to 50%, maybe even 55%. No point in saving them now. No load management needed. These guys are ready to go. Hedman and Ruda. Hedman is not going to give away the crown that easily. When you have an elite defenseman in Makar, you have it in Hedman as well. I think Makar is above Hedman at this point. If you still got Hedman above, that's fine. I'm not even going to argue at this point in time. I think Makar is the best player in the world right now in these playoffs, in this current moment. It changes all the time, but in this moment, it's Makar's moment. Hedman is amazing. Ruda is amazing. The blender that has been the defense for the Tampa Bay Lightning, their lines and pairings have changed up quite a lot. The only reason the Avs have ended up changing up was due to the Girard injuries. When you take a look at the defensive pairings down here, the balance is going to go to the Bolts, but that Makar and Devon Toews line, it has me leading over to the Avs. So I like the Avs roster better right now, even without Kadri, even without Girard. Finally, we take a look at goalies. Andrei Vasilevskiy, best goalie, maybe the best player in this series right now. When you take a look at Kuemper, a 4.2 is what he was at with GSSAA in the regular season. He can be very, very good. He has just been absolute trash in these playoffs. So if he can find his game and step it up, then Vasilevskiy's advantage dwindles significantly. If he doesn't figure it out, the advantage for Vasilevskiy is massive. If you wanted to take a look at players and their importance and blow them up as like their name gets bigger, the more important they are, Makar would be massive and Vasilevskiy would double him. Goalies are that important when it comes to a finals like this, and Andrei Vasilevskiy has done nothing but win cups, be cool as a cucumber. It does not matter if you take 2 games against Vasilevskiy. It does not matter if he's playing on the road or at home. When he finds his game, he ends up winning. So yes, he's given up more on the road than he has at home. But remember, Tampa Bay has not had home ice advantage this entire playoffs. They don't have it now. It didn't matter to Vasilevskiy. He still got it done. So when you take a look at this roster, there's 2 narratives you take away. The juggernaut of the Colorado Avalanche, even without Kadri and Girard, well documented. They are amazing. But when you take a look at the Bolts, they are good enough. And when you have Andrei Vasilevskiy in net, that may end up tipping it. Which one do you believe? Are you believing in the goalie and the good team versus the weak goalie and the amazing team? That's really what you're balancing when you take a look at these line matching pieces. You also have to consider the coach. How does the coach deploy his roster? I think Jon Cooper is better at adjusting than Jared Bednar. Jared Bednar is a great coach. So is Gallant. There's a ton of great coaches in the playoffs right now. Cooper's the man. Hard stop. I have watched Cooper make adjustment after adjustment after adjustment. In Armchair GMs, you talk about players, you talk about lines, you talk about line combinations. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jon Cooper changing his entire defensive and offensive strategy at a moment's notice mid-game in the Tampa Bay Lightning doing it. They are like salmon swimming up the stream. They do exactly what needs to be done. They follow each other. They do it as a unit. So there is not just one way they can beat you. They have 5 or 6 tricks in their bag and they will change it. They can beat you up physically. They can beat you defensively. They can race you to 7 if you want to. They have a lot of different options in their bag, whereas I feel the Colorado Avalanche are going to beat you on the rush. They're going to beat you in scoring. They're going to beat you in Corsi and offensive pressure. They're going to beat you the right way. But Jon Cooper and his deployment of his team strategies, it ends up beating Bednar. So now that we've taken a look at the roster, now that you've heard me talk about it, we've had this screen capture up for way too long. You let me know what you think down below. There are so many things we can talk about when it comes to this roster. We're in the home stretch now. Let's go ahead and talk about the reasons each team is going to win and lose. The reason the Bolts are going to win, number 1 is Andrei Vasilevskiy. Number 2, veteran presence. You've heard me say it. What does veteran presence mean, kiddies? Comment down below. I'll wait. If you said gooning without taking penalties, and things behind the play that are a little bit chippy, but not quite injury-ridden, you would be right. They're going to hold sticks, they're going to cross-check, they're going to hook, they're going to hold, and it is going to be effective, and they're likely going to get away with it. The penalty kill for the Bolts is a big deal. The coach for the Bolts is a massive deal. Jon Cooper's adjustments, just talked about it. Then you go ahead and you take a look at number 6, which is the D zone. This could be the X factor. Throw up your X's there, folks. The D zone could end up being what takes it home for the Bolts. They block shots like crazy, so go ahead and pepper them. They are going to put life, limb, and teeth on the line for their goalie. How about the reasons the Avs are going to win? Scoring. Number one reason, the Avs can outscore all their problems, and they can outscore the Bolts, and they can likely beat Vasilevskiy. That is the number one reason they're going to win. How about the elites, man? Everybody wants to talk about the elites. MacKinnon, Makar, Landeskog, the elites on the Avs are the best. When I take a look at Stamkos versus MacKinnon, give me MacKinnon. When I take a look at Makar versus Hedman, give me Makar. When I take a look at Makar versus anybody, give me Makar, with the exception of Vasilevskiy. When I take a look at the Avs, their power play is the number three reason they could win. They could definitely exploit that Bolts PK, so that's going to be a big deal for the Avs. And if the Bolts veteran presence ends up taking them to the box and the referees call it tight, they haven't in the first three series against the Bolts, but if they change and they start calling those little chippy things, that power play is going to shred them. The number four reason is speed. Speed up the middle always wins. They are the faster team. They are the more youthful team. Look, the Bolts aren't old by any means, but I have not seen a team play as fast as the Colorado Avalanche ever. When we take a look at number five, they're better. They're just simply better. Everything that the Avs do is better than anyone else in the NHL, but that doesn't mean they'll win a 7-game series against the Bolts. When you take a look at number six, it's their creativity. These guys do things with the puck that I have not seen done before, and they do it all up and down the lineup. That is why the Avalanche are going to win the cup. Taking a look at the reasons the Avs may lose, though, it's a short list, but number one, they get gooned. I just told you about veteran presence. They're going to be looking to hit. They're going to be looking to play physical if they want. If they don't, the Bolts will go ahead. They'll put that trick in the bag. But they can pull out the physical trick and they can pull out the behind the play trick at any point in time. That could be a reason the Avs end up losing. I don't know if they will have a response to the tendencies and tactics of the Tampa Bay Lightning. You don't have to like it, but it works. The number two reason they end up losing, weak goalies. Now, it's not weak goalies for them. It's actually the weak goalies they played against. So are their stats overinflated because they played against weak goalies? We'll have to see because they're about to play against the best. Number three is Kuemper. They could actually end up losing because of Kuemper. If his eye and he's unable to return to his regular season format, it's over. Look, Grubauer was a Vezina nominee with the Colorado Avalanche. That's how good the Avs are. He went over to Seattle. Sucks. He's done. I said with the Avs last year he wasn't a good goalie, and the Colorado Avalanche propped him up, and I'm starting to feel the same way about Kuemper. The Avs are just that damn good that it seems like any goalie that goes in their net becomes serviceable, good enough, and able to win. Wow, I cannot believe how good this team is. But if Kuemper can return and I'm wrong, and Kemper's actually a very good goalie, then the Avs end up winning. Finally, the reasons the Bolts are going to lose. Number one, they're going to get outscored. I mean, the Colorado Avalanche just score in bunches, so that's a very good reason for the Bolts to lose. Number two is penalties. That veteran presence, they end up getting taken to the box. It's over. That power play is going to shred you. And number three, slow. Unhook the trailer, baby. Compared to the Avs, this team is slow up the middle of the ice. You may be showing me a whole bunch of clips of Kuch and everything they do on the transition game, and it is excellent. You don't make the Stanley Cup Finals being a slow team. You make the Stanley Cup Finals being a complete team. But compared to the Avs, folks, compared to the Avs, that's all we're comparing. We're not comparing the NHL at this point. One team, that's all you have to compare against. They are slow compared to the Avs on the transition game. It could be difficult for them to get out of their own zone with that Avs offense down low, and they may have trouble transitioning against the Avs. If they can't get out of their zone, if they can't get through the neutral zone, they are going to be in big trouble, and that's a reason they could lose the cup. So there it is. There's the summary. There's the reason they win. There's the reason they lose. We've got a goalie, a complete team, and a veteran team against young, speedy, with an elite defenseman in Cale, Makar, and a team that is fully complete, baby. Tragically hip reference. If you're American, and you probably are watching this, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's fine. When we go ahead and take a look at these reasons, it's going to lead us to our final prediction. R being me, you're going to let me know who you got down below. But finally, I have, drum roll please, the third Stanley Cup going to the Bolts. I want to pick the Avs. Look, everybody knows I picked the Oilers over the Avs last time because I picked with my heart. I was very clear with that, people. I did not lead you down a path of lies and deception. I said the Avs are better. You should pick the Avs. The smart money's on the Avs. They're the better team. Pick the Avs. I just got to go with the Oilers because I'm just feeling the Oilers. This is not that. This is totally different. When I take a look at the data, the Avs win in almost every category, but you cannot account for the goalies in this data because they haven't played a good goalie. And you've heard me say all year that I think the West is weaker. You've also heard me say all year that not only is the West weaker, but the Avs still may be the best team in the NHL. The division and the strength of the West means nothing to the quality of the team you're about to play. So the Avs are that damn good. The question is, are they really that good, or were they overinflated playing some of the weaker teams in the West? We are going to know at the end of this series. The best team always wins a 7-game series. So right now, I'm going to take the defense, I'm going to take the goalie, and I'm going to take the veteran presence. I'm a boring coach, guys. Coaches love veterans, coaches love goaltenders, and coaches love D-zone. I don't know why. It's just what we do. The offense and the skill and the ability for the Avs is well documented. You are fine picking either one of these teams. I cannot tell you you're right or wrong with whoever you pick. I am just going to take the Bolts until it's not the Bolts. And you heard me say that in our initial prediction video when I talked about them against the Leafs. I said this is the Bolts until it isn't the Bolts. So only the Avs can make it, not about the Bolts. We'll catch you guys in the Game 1 video review.